Hey folks, this is Riker, and Diablo 4 just got its best quality of life change yet. And Blizzard didn't even put it in the patch notes. The patch also included a bunch of bugs. Outside of that, we got a teaser for the next Path of Exile 1 League. Bungie may have built an entire game off of stolen art, and Doom proves once again that reinventing yourself can pay off. Today we're diving into hotfix chaos, indie dev struggles, and the rarest species in modern gaming, sadly, a AAA game that runs well on launch. So if you enjoy these weekly news roundups, make sure you're subscribed to join Riker's Raiders and stay caught up on the gaming world. Let's kick things off with Diablo news. The May 14th update brought fixes and fresh bugs. With this patch, Belial was removed from the Eternal Realm accidentally. The Belial quest completion alert kept re-triggering every time you fast traveled. The Lunar New Year icon, like from the Lunar New Year event from months ago, yeah, that just started appearing in Ked Bardu. It would pop up there until you'd move over to see, hey, what's this event? And it would disappear, leading some people to speculate, is this some kind of a teaser of something? I mean, hey, okay, in all fairness, maybe it is, but it very much just seemed to be the exact Lunar New Year icon. Now, thankfully, most of these issues were resolved pretty quickly after the patch. And I think they've also finally managed to fix the Infernal Hordes UI bug. That was a real mystery. But all of this certainly raises some questions about what's going on with the QAing of these patches. Is it that the QA testers, they're not catching these things, or is it that devs are not able to implement the fixes in time for patch launch? Because something is breaking down somewhere here. But outside of that, we got some pleasant surprises with the patch. The Mother's Blessing event, for instance, went live. Bonus XP, bonus gold until May 20th. At this point, we should probably just assume this is going to always be a thing every season, and it kicks off a few weeks into the start of a season. I think it's a nice catch-up mechanic for players who are late to a season start, or, you know, if you've just been playing since the start, you want to farm up some alt characters, now is a good time to do it. But the best surprise of the patch, and in fact, I'm really surprised that they didn't advertise it, because it's huge. Remember how in Season 7, we had the bird appear, the raven or the crow? It would appear in Helltide whenever our whispers were full. You can go there, turn in. Well, the bird is back. It doesn't operate the same way. Now the bird is inside cities. Like, you go to Karagar, and you'll find now close to the waypoint is that little bird. So you don't have to interrupt your regular, return to Karagar gameplay flow when your whispers are full. Currently, right, there's always some favored town that you go back to salvage all your stuff, and then when your whispers are full, you gotta go to the Tree of Whispers to turn that in. Now, you can do it all in Karagar. This is a fantastic change. And it came just as players were asking questions about the roadmap, which, if you take a look, it promised that Season 7 was adding permanent Whisper quality of life updates. Well, here they are. Now, another great change from this week's patch, all the excess boss power ash that you've been saving up, because you got nothing to do with it, well, now you can spend it on scrolls that give you a bunch of progress on your reputation board. So, since every new character needs to farm up the reputation board again, you can now instead farm up a bunch of ash on your main, buy these scrolls with that ash, and then max out your new character's reputation board to get that juicy spark at the end to start crafting up some mythics. If only you can find the runes. To be specific, you'll need about 15,000 ash to max out a new character's reputation board. Closer to 18,000 if you don't have the earn buff to get more ash. But before spending them on a new character though, make sure you at least do the first seasonal quest on that new character to actually unlock the reputation board before you start opening those scrolls. Another surprise this week, the 2.3.0 PTR is on the horizon. That's going to be Season 9. And Blizzard's planning a campfire chat on May 22nd at 11 a.m. PDT to talk about it. This one will be previewing the Sins of the Haradrim season and its dungeon escalation activity. We spoke about that a little bit in my interview with game director Brent Gibson when we were discussing the roadmap. Do be sure to have checked out that roadmap interview. But this also confirms that Season 8 will be a shorter season than usual, which was corroborated by the Battle Pass being about 2 months rather than the usual 3. Now, what are you hoping to hear about during the campfire chat? Because personally, I hope this dungeon escalation proves to be a major endgame system update. Also, I think it would be cool to have some endgame mode, whether it's the pit or whether it's nightmare dungeons or something new entirely, where as you go deeper and deeper, as you reach deeper levels or higher difficulties of it, the environment changes to reflect that increase in difficulty. Kind of like how in Diablo 1, right? You enter the cathedral and you're going down and down and down. As you get lower, the environment changes and it becomes more menacing, and you eventually start to feel like you are reaching literal hell. So it'd be cool if the environment reflects it, but then also that the difficulty increases, not just bigger numbers on monster health and damage, but stuff like increased elite density, maybe scarier affixes on elites, I don't know. Maybe even take a page out of Diablo 3's Visions of Enmity. It's like a new feature that was added toward the end of Diablo 3's support. Many of you might not even have known that these things were added into the game, but they're these random multi-level instances that you can stumble upon. And you never really know what you're going to get. They're these crazy levels. Sometimes you go into a level and it's just a bunch of bosses, or it's a whole floor just full of elites. So it'd be cool to get just like wild stuff like that. Now let's go over a little bit more Season 8 feedback. First few days of the season, I pushed very hard, put a lot of hours into it. Now I'm playing it much more relaxed and casual. My first character was a Bone Spear Necromancer. I had a great time building that up. Now I'm working on a Death Trap Rogue. Just got our Slime and T4 content. I got plenty of room to keep upgrading. My glyphs are low. My gear is pretty scuffed. But again, even with this alt, I really enjoyed the leveling process. I'm enjoying the gearing process. My stance remains the same, that I'm having fun this season. I'm not burnt out yet. I'm enjoying the progression pace. But overall, I like Season 8 not because of Season 8, but because of the base game. I almost like Season 8 in spite of Season 8. The seasonal powers, I still think these are the best seasonal powers yet overall. You know, they're visually big and impactful. Leveling with a spin to win rogue with the tree boss beam, that was awesome. Running Death Trap with the Beast and Ice's exploding glaciers is really cool. When I was running my Blood Surge and I had the Grigor lightning coming down, that was really cool. Now, of course, not all the powers are winners. The lower tier ones I can do without entirely. Some of the mid and even high tier ones also aren't that spectacular. The Duriel Burrow, really cool visually, thematically. I just haven't found a build that makes good use of it, but I'm definitely going to miss some of these powers next season. As for the Season 8 activity, the incursions, look, it's not something that's going to bring people back to the game for, but the permanent addition of Belial as a new pinnacle boss, hey, he's great. He's got no annoying invulnerability phases, which actually makes him the best boss and arguably the easiest boss to fight in terms of, reward, but also the fight just feeling good. The new Mephisto Wolf boss fight, it's got some cool mechanics going on in it. I don't know that this is the best implementation of the idea just because of the invulnerability phases, but I do like the mechanic added from a certain perspective. So let's lay out the groundwork on how this works. There are phases in the fight where a bunch of portals appear, and then we got an ally who comes by and summons some energy balls for us. And we can take those energy balls to destroy the portals, and we gotta destroy these portals to progress the fight. So what I specifically like is this whole portal destruction mechanic, where here's an objective in the middle of the fight, and you can go and grab these energy balls, and this adds a different gameplay mechanic to the fight, where you're interacting with this object, you are positioning yourself, you are aiming, and then you are going to fire off that energy ball to destroy the portal. That's how the mechanic works. Destroying the portal then progresses the fight. And the reason that I especially like it is because if you have just ridiculous DPS potential, you can just DPS the portal down. You don't have to use those energy balls. If your build is, I don't say weaker, if your build is like average, it's more time efficient to grab the energy ball and do that. But if you are a Giga Chad build, you can just, it's faster for you to just destroy the portal outright yourself. And I think in general, that's how boss mechanics ought to work. That the mechanics are there, but eventually you can theoretically get powerful enough to just brute force your way through the mechanics. I don't think all builds should be able to do that. But if you make the best possible build to do this one thing in the game, yeah, I do think that the best bossing builds in the game, right? If you make a build specifically to take on this boss, that the best possible build that you can make for that boss ought to be able to delete the boss and survive any potential one-shots. That's the fantasy. The power fantasy in an ARPG is to eventually get strong enough to make the game easy. I'm going to clarify, this is not the same thing as saying everyone should be able to go around one-shotting all bosses all the time. But again, the power fantasy is most fun when the game feels like we're breaking the game. Like what we're doing should not be allowed. Like, oh man, I've found a way to do so much damage that I just bypassed that boss's second phase completely. Or by the same token, oh man, I built a build that is the tankiest thing in the world and it can actually survive that thing that one-shots every other build. Now, I keep seeing more and more complaints about the Andariel boss fight this season. It's a combination of visual clutter that builds up with huge damage mechanics, the unavoidable interruptions to go deal with those pillars, the strict positioning needed to even damage those pillars while playing jump rope over those death beams. She's just the most cumbersome boss to fight, maybe outside of Uber Lilith, but you don't really gotta do Uber Lilith, you don't gotta grind Uber Lilith. So what if Andariel just stuck around during these pillar phases? Give her a huge barrier, right? But she's still there. You can choose, if you want to just stubbornly keep attacking her and ignore the pillars. If you have an insane amount of DPS, then maybe it's faster for you to take down her barrier than it is for you to go destroy those pillars. But for, again, average build, average player, you are better rewarded by doing the actual mechanics. Maybe every pillar that you destroy kills off a third of her barrier. Make those pillars seem like an offensive action we can choose to take to destroy Andariel faster, as opposed to a chore that's interrupting the fight. But hey, that's just an idea. Meanwhile, the Berserk event is still ongoing. A lot of people are disappointed in the lost potential of the event itself. As it stands, right, the crossover, does no harm to the game. It doesn't take anything away. But for example, we've got a video that the Diablo team released on the Diablo YouTube channel where members of the D4 team are talking about their love for Berserk. And as someone who, I don't even know Berserk existed before this crossover, hearing them talk about this, that got me hyped for this. And I wish they could have brought that passion and those ideas into actual gameplay. Like, what if during the event Helltide was reskinned to an Eclipse? Because my understanding is Eclipse is somehow related to Berserk. Maybe you get the Blood Maiden just reskinned, replaced with Zod from Berserk. I'm just imagining the point of a crossover is cross-marketing. So imagine a fan of Berserk has been on the fence about buying Diablo 4, then they learn about the crossover event. That gives them the extra nudge they needed to buy the game, they buy it, and then they find out, oh, well, there really isn't anything to the event outside of the cosmetics, and all the coolest stuff is very expensive shop skins. Other games have crossover events, and there generally is more to them than this. So when you say a crossover event is happening, that sets expectations. People have expectations from other games, and they're going to bring those expectations, and they're going to be disappointed when it's just shop skins. I feel like for future crossovers to be as successful as possible, it's got to be treated as a love letter to that franchise, not just in the choice of cosmetics to bring, which credit where it's due. They all look fantastic, right? No one is questioning that the skins look great. They're faithful to the original. The art team always delivers. But I think just in general, we should have more events happening in Diablo 4, events that are executed well. And these crossovers provide opportunity for these events. Opportunity for events to engage with different kinds of gameplay and allow, Blizzard to sell skins. Oh, random small quality of life suggestion. When I look at what Nightmare Dungeon keys I have, if any of them happen to have a currently active whisper, it'd be great if there was some kind of little visual effect, like a highlight, like a purple flame or smoke or something. I bet more people would do Nightmare Dungeons if they did this, because right now, there's no way I'm going to bring up my map, look at every single Nightmare Dungeon, try to find which ones are whispers, and then cross-reference that to the list of Nightmare Dungeon keys that I have. I'm just not doing that. But folks, what's your take on Season 8? Are you team actually enjoying it? Are you team burned out by the grind? Or are you team I've given up on Diablo 4 for now? Let me know down in the comments. Oh, and if you're looking for some different Diablo action, Project Diablo 2's newest season started last night. They've added WASD support, controller support, currency tab, and more. For those who don't know, PD2 is a mod for Diablo 2, not Diablo 2 Resurrected, just the original Diablo 2, and it aims to capture what basically they believe Diablo 2 would have been today if the devs kept updating it throughout all these years. The mod's got a healthy player base, they got loot filters, they got a separate inventory for charms, which, thank God. They got tons of build diversity, they got much more endgame, so much. ProjectDiablo2.com. Moving on to some no rest for the Wicked news. You may have heard recently some headlines that the devs, Moon Studios, are a couple months away from shutting down if things go poorly with their game. Well, reports of their death are greatly exaggerated, it turns out. Moon Studios head Thomas Mahler did post in the game's Discord server, which is kind of like a little tight-knit community, and he said, quote, "Folks, if you're writing here and are enjoying Wicked and are excited for future updates, but haven't left a positive review, it's entirely possible that we won't be around in a couple of months to do anything anymore simply because we got review bombed, which leads to people not buying the game, which means we're not making any money and we'll have to shut down. I wouldn't ask if our business wouldn't be dependent on it. I also never write reviews on anything, but if you want to see us actually finish Wicked, it's imperative that we get that review score back up." Then, following journalistic outlets catching this quote and writing articles about it, Thomas said that this quote was taken out of context, and he said, quote, "No, we're not in immediate financial danger, but from time to time, I think I'm allowed to speak up about issues within our industry I personally find unbecoming." So to clarify some stuff, at least from my perspective here, No Rest for the Wicked recently released a major update after cooking for several months. There were some major balance issues that resulted in many of the longtime players not enjoying this patch. Many legitimate negative reviews were left on Steam. The game was not review bombed in the definition that most people mean. Now, I used to incorrectly use the term review bomb. I just thought review bomb meant when you suddenly get a lot of negative reviews. I used to use it this way in past videos. Y'all called me out on it. I appreciate the correction. And I'm willing to believe Thomas Mahler here also probably was under the same understanding of that review bombing just means a whole bunch of negative reviews all of a sudden. The way people use it today is that a review bomb is when a bunch of people leave unwarranted negative reviews. Let's say you don't like a company, you leave a negative review on its game just to send a message. It has no bearing on the actual merit of the game. In this case, my understanding with Wicked, the negative reviews were warranted because they were from players with many hours spent on the game, and they were writing critical feedback about why they didn't like the update. But then Moon Studios basically fixed everything that people complained about within a couple of days. So pretty much everyone who tried the game again after the fixes felt that things were good now. The problem is that most people only feel inclined to leave a review if it's a negative review. How many of you folks, when you enjoy something, do you take the time to go leave a positive review? Versus how often, when you're unhappy with something, do you feel like you gotta go leave a negative review? And then of people that leave a negative review, oftentimes, even if they now start liking the thing, they don't go back and change their review, even if the devs have addressed the issues you highlighted. So, No Rest for the Wicked still had a lot of negative reviews from the initial patch release, even though most things were fixed within days. So Thomas Mahler was just encouraging people to go leave accurate reviews, either update their review, or, if you're just someone who is enjoying the game and didn't think to leave a review, just, hey, remember, you could leave a review. As for the whole studio shutting down stuff, look, Wicked was originally being developed under a publisher, Private Division. But Private Division had the vast majority of its staff laid off last year, and it has subsequently been sold off to private equity. During this period of turmoil, Moon Studios basically bought itself free, and so Wicked is now being completely independently published. That's part of the reason why it has taken so long for the Breach update. Now, Moon Studios is a team of about 90 people. They've been working on Wicked for years. They possibly now had to put up capital to buy back their own publishing rights, I don't know. And even if they didn't, they suddenly have to foot the bill for a bunch of stuff that the publisher would have previously covered. So their expenses have just rocketed up. These are the struggles of an indie dev, especially with a team as large as Moon's. It's not, enormous by AAA standards, but as an indie company, yeah, that's a lot of employees to be responsible for, a lot of salaries. And it does feel overall like Moon Studios is all in on Wicked. So if No Rest for the Wicked were to catastrophically fail, if it were to not sell another copy, then yeah, Moon Studios would either have to shut down or they would have to seek funding for a new project. That said, that does not mean they are imminently on the brink of shutdown, just that, yeah, logically, if you like the game and you want it to succeed, then leaving a positive review helps ensure the continued funding of the studio. Anyway, the reviews have now bounced back to very positive on Steam, sitting at around 81% positive reviews, and many folks are genuinely in love with the game. The art, the music, the boss fights, the atmosphere. For an early access title, it's incredibly polished as well. The team also teased what is to come in the next patch, and it's looking to address a bunch more great stuff. Realm tiers, where you can pick your preferred difficulty. I know a lot of people, anytime I talk about this game, I've been talking about it since last year, right? A lot of people say the game is too hard for them. Well, it sounds like with this whole realm tier system, you'll be able to now change the difficulty. Also, they're planning to let you now natively have access to 4 utility runes, as opposed to being embedded in your weapons. So you can have a healing spell on you at all times, and it's not consuming a slot for a rune on your weapon. They're also looking to add fast travel between whispers. Might be something that you're going to build up towards over time. Ranged gameplay is getting a balance pass. It's funny, they've kind of bounced back and forth on this. So the game has stamina, and then it has like mana, which is, they call it focus, right? You have bows in the game, and months ago when they first added the bows, you had to spend your focus to shoot your bow. People didn't like that, so they changed it to stamina. Like, swinging a sword or shooting a bow uses stamina, which replenishes on its own. Mana focus does not replenish on its own. And people were happy when now bows could be used without having to consume focus. But then with this Breach Pass, they swapped it back to the way it was. I imagine it's because they felt that bow use was or bow builds were just too strong. And I don't blame them. But yeah, we don't like that. We don't want bow use to operate that way. So they're changing it back, and I think they're just going to nerf how effective bows are, which I think is very fair. Other things they're going to do is add more weekly bounties so players don't run out of stuff to do so quickly. Better resource farming. There's also going to be better loot tables for hard to reach shinies. And fall damage is going to be a lot less punishing. I think the leading cause of death in general across the game is falling. All these are great changes, and that's not even the entire list of what they're looking at. Moving on to some Path of Exile news. Path of Exile 1 just dropped a mysterious teaser for 3.26 in the form of a journal entry titled, My Purpose. For the first time in my life, I found meaning, purpose. A path has revealed itself, winding inexorably toward the Atlas, and I must follow it to find the originator. Who wrote this? Is this Shaper? Shaper's original mission was to rebuild the map device and chart the Atlas, right? Meanwhile, over in Path of Exile 2, the devs released the patch notes for patch 020H, and it's a great looking patch, bringing a bunch of quality life changes. Let's talk Breach first. The minimum encounter time has been bumped from 12 seconds to 20 seconds. And now the time extension is smarter. It takes monster power into account. So killing rares and magic monsters gets you more time than slapping a bunch of white monsters. Breach monster spawning has also been overhauled, especially for tight spaces. And now instead of scattering splinters everywhere, they will vacuum up and drop neatly at your feet when the breach ends. Private leagues are now enabled as well. They haven't added extra mods to them. They will come soon. For now, it's really just a way to start fresh, play maybe just with your friends in a fresh economy. There's also a bunch of quality of life love in this patch. We're getting quick use buttons under strong boxes and essences. We're getting better visibility on rogue exiles. Improved item drops, including more level 20 uncut skill and spirit gems, more perfect jeweler's orbs. Shrines. The diamond and divine shrines are now going to be more common. Shrine durations have been extended, some up to 90 seconds. And they removed the useless greed and corrupting shrines. On the stash side, they're adding a new ritual tab for omens and audience fragments, and a socketable tab for your runes, talismans, and soul cores. That second one even lets you upgrade runes straight from the stash tab, no need to mess with a bench. PoE2 Early Access is really starting to feel like early access now, as in fast and meaningful updates to the game. Alright, moving on to some truly messy news here. Marathon. Bungie, the developers, just confirmed that Marathon, their upcoming extraction shooter, used unauthorized artwork in its recent alpha. That artwork in question, designed in 2017 by an artist known as Anti-Real, who says her work was blatantly used without permission, without pay, and without credit. She posted on Blue Sky saying, quote, Bungie is of course not obligated to hire me when making a game that draws overwhelmingly from the same design language I have refined for the last decade. But clearly my work was good enough to pillage for ideas and plaster all over their game without pay or attribution. I don't have the resources nor the energy to spare to pursue this legally, but I have lost count of the number of times a major company has deemed it easier to pay a designer to imitate or steal my work than to write me an email. Now, I need to stress here, this case is completely unambiguous. There is zero room for giving Bungie charity here. And I'm someone who always extends charity to everyone wherever possible. I defend the indefensible. I'm always willing to give the benefit of the doubt and to see the other side. There is no other side here. These don't look similar to her work. They don't look inspired by her work. They are direct copy pastes. Her signature as an artist can literally be seen partially erased in some of the textures. And again, Bungie has publicly admitted to the unauthorized use of her work. They didn't deny it. They acknowledged it. They said on Twitter, quote, "We immediately investigated a concern regarding unauthorized use of artist decals in Marathon and confirmed that a former Bungie artist included these in a texture sheet that was ultimately used in-game." Now, I could imagine how this happened. I don't think, and I hope it wasn't, I don't think it was deliberate malice. I'm not saying that makes it okay. I'm saying this is what likely happened here. Early on in the development of a game's artistic vision, art director and concept artists are going to pull images from everywhere to be used as references. This is what our game should look like. Take these elements from this and these elements from that to give our game this kind of a feel, that kind of stuff. I think they call it a mood board. Then the artists produce their own original artwork based on that. So what I imagine happened here is that some wires got crossed and assets that were meant to be just used for inspiration ended up being mistaken for assets produced in-house. Combine that with, years of development, some artists leaving, new artists coming in. There's room for confusion. But to clarify, this should never happen. It is Bungie's responsibility to have a system of checks and balances to ensure this never happens. And in Bungie's case, this is especially egregious for two big reasons. First off, the main selling point of Marathon, the thing that makes it distinct from the competition in this oversaturated market, is its visual style. And that visual style seems almost entirely informed by the art of Anti-Real. This isn't just a character, one item, one location. It's part of the entire visual identity of the game. Second, this isn't Bungie's first time making this mistake. It's not their second time. It's not even their third time. In 2024, an artist found their design on a Destiny 2 gun. In 2023, an artist discovered their work in a Destiny 2 cutscene. In 2021, fan art showed up in a Destiny 2 trailer. And there's allegedly been other instances as well. But at least for these three instances, Bungie compensated and credited the artists after these scenarios went public because they were caught. So again, full-on acknowledgement on their part. They did not deny or obfuscate. They said, yep, this happened. But at this point, I don't think it's enough to, after the fact, issue an apology and compensate the artists. Because think of it this way. These are the only instances in which Bungie was caught. How many artists unknowingly have their work somewhere in a Bungie game? They can't keep getting away with this. But they do. I'd love to see some lawyer grab a bunch of artists and start a class action lawsuit here. Because it seems that's the only way Bungie will actually change their processes to ensure this doesn't happen again. Because clearly they haven't been taking it seriously. But what do you folks think? Am I overblowing this? Would it be too arduous for game companies to rigidly police every texture placed in their games? Sound off in the comments. Moving on to some Doom news. Doom: The Dark Ages released this week, and it's looking to be another big win for id Software. The game is sitting at an 87 top critic average score on OpenCritic, with 96% of critics recommending it. That puts it right in line with the rest of the modern Doom trilogy. 2016 scored an 86, Doom Eternal got an 89, and again, The Dark Ages holding steady at about 87. But the real story here isn't just the numbers, it's the trajectory of this trilogy. id Software has done what few studios, AAA studios at least, dare to do, and that's take massive creative swings with every entry. Each game in this trilogy feels distinct. You've got the rebooted power fantasy of 2016, the high-speed tactical ballet of Eternal, And now the Dark Ages, slower, more methodical, with a parry-focused combat system and medieval flavor. They don't just release the same game but with more demons and more guns. Some players might prefer one entry in the trilogy over others, and that's fine. But good on id for not playing it safe, even if that seems to have lost them points from some critics who really did just want more of the same or who preferred the style of one of the previous entries. And bonus points, the game seems really well optimized, which in 2025 is apparently exceptional and worth pointing out. Kind of sad that we have to praise baseline functionality as a quality because so many games are releasing poorly optimized these days. But what do you folks think? If you've played Doom the Dark Ages, how are you liking this newest entry? Do you wish they'd played it safer? Sound off in the comments, because that's going to wrap up this week's video. But do be sure to check out last week's video in which we discussed why Diablo Immortal's Berserk event was better than Diablo 4's. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Rikers Raiders for more gaming content.